Hello. Good evening, folks. Welcome to the stream. Hope everybody is well. Quick thanks to Kerry, who's in the chat at the moment, for doing the stream yesterday. That helped pass the evening quite agreeably. Tonight we're going to be having a bit of a watch of Zombie 3. A bit of a curious film, to say the least, from what I've seen of it. Haven't seen a whole heck of a lot. But Everett says, I'll be honest, I tend to watch Zombie 3 and Zombie 4 more than any Fulci or Romero. Well, there is no accounting for taste, my good friend. Hope everybody got to enjoy their previous weekend, as much as I did. I was away, I was up at my brother's place. It was a very nice one to do. I got to go up to Alton Towers. The lines were so fucking abysmal. When we got there, it didn't look busy. So pulling up into the car park, there's next to nobody there, at least it seemed. But I think they parked around the corner or something like that. But we got in there and it was just like an hour for the first ride. An hour and 15 for the second ride. Third ride we queued for an hour and it got closed. And we were still like 40 minutes away, I reckon, at a guess. And then we got one more ride in before we kind of like just went, no, we've had enough, and walked away. So, good God. We kind of enjoyed it. We did get to go on the Wicker Man, which is quite a fun ride. Wooden roller coaster. It's been there a few years now, but not a heck of a long time. So, yeah. Hey, Lampy, hiding from the British sunshine too. Always. I work in theatres, and theatres aren't exactly renowned for having windows. Well, I am on holiday, so... we had a pretty good day on that. Then I went up to Bradgate Park near Leicester and took some photos of the deer and stuff. So I had a pretty good weekend last weekend. It was quite nice, and it was good to see my brother. But, yeah... Am I hiding from the British sunshine? Yeah. I think Simon, he's out to the pub tonight, but Simon was complaining about it not being warm enough. I'm like, no, this is plenty warm enough, thank you very much. It gets over 22, 23 degrees, and that's it, I'm done. Yeah. I don't want anything to do with it. And I'm not a big one for being out in sun. I'm alright if I'm walking around, but I do not understand sunbathing. I don't know how anybody finds that a pleasant experience. I mean, I wear a hat most of the time when I'm out because I don't like the bright sun in the face and all that kind of stuff. And I'm one of those people that always feels like their body's about to ignite when you're outside in the sun for too long. I must be part vampire. Wasn't Zombie 3 half Fulci, half Mattei? Yes, sort of. We're going to watch it and see if we can figure this out. Lucio Fulci, it was his project to start with. And there's two theories. One is that he walked off because he was ill and couldn't complete shooting. The other was that he had artistic differences, shall we say, with the producers, and Mattei basically stepped in and completed the picture. From what I remember of this film, a lot of it really does look very, very Bruno Mattei rather than Fulci. But we shall have a look at that and try and analyse that as we go along. It is, of course, credited writing-wise to Claudio Fragrasso. So, my God, I think we're in for a bit of a one tonight. I would say Zombie 3 is the best of the bunch. It was not Zombie Flesh Eaters. I thought Zombie Flesh Eaters were the best of the bunch. And, of course, in Italy, Zombie was Dawn of the Dead. So that would definitely be the best of the bunch. Apologies from Adam. He's at a mate's wedding. Oh, yeah. Let's see. It's fine. That's kind of understandable. Can't stay. I thought, I just said you'd be away, Simon. Thanks for popping in. And I hope your writing block has evaporated a bit. If not, get working on that tonight, mate. So we won't take too long before we get started. I must admit, I'm just really sleepy this last couple of days. Which is partly the reason I didn't do it last night, but Kerry filled in, as I say. So it wasn't Wasn't like there was nothing going on or anything like that. But yeah. Yeah. So I'll say right now, get yourself all queued up, ready for Zombie 3. Link is at the very top of the discussion, and it is also in the description of the video. I should probably just shove it in there as well. I'll shove it in chat. I must warn you, my landlord has changed internet providers for... so if there's any issues with the stream, if I drop out at all or anything like that, it's because of that. It's been a bit shaky, so we're going to see what's going on with that. Hopefully it's coming through loud and clear. Nobody's been screaming audio at me, so but it kind of like when your audio bit rate is at 0, and like kind of, really? Okay. Be in and out, but have the movie playing in a different tab. Excellent. I'm more partial to Zombie 4 after death. Myself feels like cross between Predator and Zombie Fresh Eaters. You know what? I haven't seen that. I found a whole bunch of films on the channel that we're watching this on, and it's a pretty interesting one. It's like Evil Eye, you know, the Mario Bava, which I think has John Saxon in it, if I remember right, and a whole bunch of stuff on there. It's quite an interesting little, interesting channel. I can't imagine it's going to be around forever though. Just potentially a little too much that YouTube would take exception to. But I'm going to have to see Zombie 4 now, aren't I, Everett? I did pick up this over the last weekend. Clive Barker's Jericho on PS3. So I've played about, I don't know, 20 minutes, half hour of that. It's a lot more first-person shooter than I expected. But going to be giving that a go. Bit more of a go. See if it goes anywhere. The look of it's kind of cool. Does have plenty of that Clive Barker-esque sort of imagery going on. Although I suspect that will get a lot more intense as the game goes along. But there's lots of very meaty tunnels and things like that. Oh dear, oh dear. We've got a few people in tonight. That's good. That's good. I'd ask Simon what he's singing tonight, but I suspect we'll probably get it on Facebook. Just for a treat. But yeah. Okay, folks, if you start giving me thumbs up when you're ready, and then we will start watching. We'll say probably within the next 5 minutes, we'll start watching Zombie 3. I've got the still image, the opening image, on my kind of like window at the moment. It's like just the first frame that comes up, and my God, it looks very, very Bruno Mattei with the very extreme colours and all that kind of stuff. I don't know who his lighting guy was, but my God, that guy really, really, really liked his... he must have spent half a budget on bloody filters, to say the least. It would look like... at the moment, I'm just looking at this image of this guy who looks like a cross between Yul Brynner and the Incredible Hulk. Richard is ready. Good. It's chucking it down outside. Ah, man. I did get to try out this bad boy. I just picked this up before I went on holiday. Which is a very decent lens with a 2-time extender on there. Spent way too much money on it. But it did allow me to get some good shots. It's great for the wildlife shoots and stuff like that, but that's sort of a full extension of this bloody thing. So it's a 100-400 mil lens with a 2-time extender on it, which makes it 200-800. They're quite nice. Friggin' heavy though. I went around Bradgate Park. I'm walking up and down these things. I'd forgotten quite how much elevation that place has. I did it the wrong way round. I started at the top, came down, and I went back up again. Bad idea. Excellent. We got a few people ready, so we'll get started and we'll have a bit of a natter as we go along. Right. Okay. Stand by your beds, folks. It's going to happen in 3, 2, 1, go. Hello, Kieran. Yes, it's an extender. They're not cheap for the RF lenses, I can tell you that much for now. There's no third-party ones at the moment. So you have to buy the Canon brand one, and the Canon brand one is kind of like of the pro quality, which means you're spending a shit ton of money on the damn things. Oh, science is going on, folks. Pay attention. This has got to be part of like an extension to Operation Sweet Death, I would imagine. Now, I say this is written by Claudio Fragrasso. It is thought that it was actually his wife, and he was just a co-writer, although he's the only one that gets credited in this, apparently. You don't think this will end well? No, I don't think it'll end well either. There's something about a lab that lights itself in green and red that kind of makes you wonder. I am going to have to see who their DOP is for this, for Bruno Mattei in general, because this does not look like a Lucio Fulci film at all. This looks entirely Bruno Mattei. It's alive! You're alive! The pain of being death. Death one, yes. Yeah, they do have a very juvenile kind of lexicon when it comes to that stuff, don't they? But at least I guess they're calling it as they see it. I'm thinking this has probably not been a good idea. It brought Michael Stipe back to life. Science, ladies and gentlemen. Science. Now, I'm thinking that this has to be the Bruno Mattei's shots. From what I understand, his contribution was probably about 30-40% of this film. It's a little up in the air. Fulci apparently did about the original cut was about 70 odd minutes of his material. Then they added more into it because the film wasn't complete at 70 minutes, obviously. So the producers apparently just brought Mattei and just kind of throw extra material in there to bring it up to a more acceptable feature length. So I understand, Kieran. Now this looks more Fulci. Cool soundtrack. I love the title card, I have to say. I'm looking forward to it, Kieran. Oh, you got the vinyl. I bet it sounds good on vinyl. It's a little muddy on this version. Have you actually seen? Ever seen? No, I haven't. I'd seen bits of it, but nothing more than that. I've always avoided a lot of the later zombie films because I just know most of them are, it's very Bruno Mattei. Sometimes it's like tonight. The reason I sort of picked it is because I kind of went, you know what, I really want to sit down and watch that. Especially considering the Lucio Fulci kind of contribution to it. It's going to be interesting, I think, to see the interplay between the two. Now, the go-to example that I've always kind of looked at when Bruno Mattei gets involved, like a late stage in any film, was with 99 Women, the French hardcore version, where he basically shot porn scenes and spliced them into the film. And I got, so far I'm getting the impression he doesn't really care much for trying to match someone else's style. Because usually you'd imagine if you're trying to sort of just finish off a film, you would try to kind of make it match up, at least in terms of visual qualities. So the lighting, the sound qualities, all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't stand out too much as something completely separate. But Bruno Mattei just never really kind of bothered with that. When you got like Jean Rollin and Jess Franco, for instance, their styles, visual styles, were in the films where they kind of like one took over from the other or whatever, tended to be a bit more sympathetic. So Jess Franco's footage, if it was used in another film, for instance, would tend to fit within that whole Eurocine thing. Don't worry, no porn inserts in any version of Zombie 3. Is that Richard Pryor as one of the armed guards? Where was that guy pointing his gun? Why is it that the terrorists always seem to know about these super secret, or you would imagine super secret military toxic gunk that these scientists keep kicking out? It's a Zombie DJ. I'm looking forward to that. Apparently, the locations of this film were chosen because they were cheap. When they wrote the script for it, they kind of transplanted it to this sort of region to get the exotic locales, but to also kind of cut down on production costs. Initially, remember initially having a Vipco DVD version of this sort of awful edition. Whole opening experiment scene was missing. I think that was probably less. I'm just going to turn my volume down a little bit. I imagine that was less to do with Vipco than it was the BBFC, but yeah, that's really annoying. These people really know how to look after themselves, don't they? Yeah, we're stealing this deadly toxin, so I'll go running towards the smoking broken container and cut myself on it. See, this looks very Bruno Mattei. It's usually because he has very high colour saturation in most of the stuff that he shoots. So all the kind of like green gunk on the hand and all that kind of stuff is this sort of comical green. It's like this almost this green that barely exists in nature. Probably all at the same time as well, Kieran. But that was very common practice in Italian filmmaking, obviously, as a general thing. Franco could be making 2 or 3 films at the same time. It should have been Giovanni Lombardo Radice. This and Hell of the Living Dead make a nice double bill. They're almost the same goddamn film, though, aren't they? I think, at least going by this so far. So he's not got all the green gunk on his hand anymore. I think you get a very different response these days, wouldn't you? It's like kind of like, what the hell kind of disease have you got? You sort of push him back with a broomstick. And now we're here to discuss our very peaceful and not at all illegal operation and research study called Operation Merciful Death. Always makes me laugh in these in these films that the military outfits always look like they've just come out of like a costume shop, and not a very good one, like a party costume shop. Progresso had an anecdote. He and Matteo were in a copter that was caught in a tornado. He turned to Matteo and said, "Why is it with you, of all people, who I'm going to die beside?" Voiced by one of the Harlem Globetrotters or something. Wow. It is how funny, sometimes the ADR sort of stuff, when they do the voiceovers and stuff, sometimes they get done really, really well, and other times they're just so far off. It's one of the things with watching the spaghetti westerns and stuff like that. Is some of them are done amazingly. Then there's a few of them which are kind of like there's a lot more ropey sort of stuff going on. It's actually on the extra. I think it's Good, Bad, and the Ugly. That the American sound guy did the kind of the English language mix. Talks about all that kind of stuff and how they had to change certain parts of the dialogue to fit the actors' lip movement, so it was less obvious. Then you get ones like this. It's like you'll get some of the completely different ethnicity, and these things often carry differences in qualities to the voice, and yeah, it's I don't think Bruno Mattei really gave that much of a crap. Could never work out whether Mattei was just incredibly lazy or brutally honest with his audience. There's no pretense to these films. I don't think it would. I wouldn't say it was honesty, and I wouldn't necessarily say it was laziness either. I think there was a certain element of that probably that he didn't really mind that much. But these films were never really, they couldn't afford a lot of money, spending on kind of like getting everything absolutely perfect and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you should watch a Chinese anime series called Ghost Stories. It was a popular show when they re-showed it in other countries, and they let actors dub it any way they wanted. Sounds like Monkey. The man needs a dermatologist. Yes. See, that's the thing. This guy's like going from pillar to post. It's like you can almost point at the bits that Matei shot, because it's like, I shoved more green in there. So the bit where he's at the desk, there's very little of that. The bit when some of the longer shots of the guy running through along the coast, it's not so prominent. Zombie 90 has the best dub job ever. I think I've seen that. Oh, well, that didn't take much. I mean, there's certainly. I think at this point in Fulci's career, I think even his sense of give a fuck really sort of went down. It's funny, I was reading this article earlier on. It was talking about kind of like, the greats of like horror cinema and stuff like that. Because it was talking about Black Glasses. Talking about, Argento and how he used to be a great director, and, it also mentioned several... Oh, that's a fat finger. Talking about several other films and directors like George Romero and a lot of the classic horror film directors. Saying how they're not... it's almost like they sort of ran out of ideas or something. So it changed at some point in their career, and they weren't capable of being... as good as they once were. And it's an interesting read. Because we do have this tendency to go, it's George Romero, he could do no wrong. It's John Carpenter, he could do no wrong. It's David Cronenberg, he could do no wrong. And even like kind of like, ouchie. It always amazes me those doors are that solid that they can actually hold weight of a human body on them and still open. But yeah, that they can't do no wrong. Yeah, and it's like, there's a certain point where these directors, they've given so much and have done so many things, and the circumstances have changed, technology has changed, and they're not, for whatever reason, able to do the same sort of stuff that they used to be able to do. You see it in writers as well. You can write a really, really good novel, or several good novels, but then you just sort of run out the drive. It becomes a job. It's just something you have to do. The passion goes. I agree, Kieran. He does like his hazmat suits, doesn't he? Which says he wet the bed. Give him a break. He's got a fatal disease. Death one. It's so subtle. Yes. Good call on that one, Kieran. I'm almost tempted to go back and have another look at it, but I know you're right. Do you want a party? It's party time. I just want Laszlo from GTA on that. How many repurposed zombie movies were there? I seem to remember being as a Zombie 6 VHS years ago. Uh, I couldn't tell you exactly off the top of my head. There were, I think it was about six. And, yeah, some of them were repurposed, others were just kind of, yeah. I mean, they don't have anything to do with each other. It's not actual true sequels. It's more like an anthology series, if you like. Oh, here we go. For Grasso and Drudy shoving in some heavy-handed commentary. Yeah. Fragrasso does have a tendency towards self-importance. Because I've seen commentary from him that he does take what he does somewhat seriously, which is a bit of a shock, because I guess with Zombie Creeping Flesh, for instance, there's an oft quoted environmental message, and it never really kind of sticks with me because it's like it's like lip service to it, if you know what I mean. So I can't take it seriously. People have tried to assign a certain amount of that oh, to other Fragrasso films. It just doesn't quite sit with me. Oh, gratuitous titty shots. Yeah, he says, Fragrasso said, I consider myself an auteur, arrogant or what. I could potentially describe him as an auteur. There is a definite look and a feel to his movies that is instantly identifiable. I'd say in that respect you could call him an auteur. I don't look at the word auteur as being a value judgment, if you know what I mean, of like kind of like a seal of quality. It's really kind of laying it on thick with the environmental stuff. It's a bit like saying Fulci was an animal rights activist for including the shark scene in Zombie 2. It's always a funny thing, though, isn't it? What they market the films as, and what they actually are. It's something that Progresso and Matei really just never really give any level of shit for. They seem very cynical about all that kind of stuff. Be it Troll 2 and stuff like that. It's not trolls in it, is it? It's goblins. Let's go handle all the dead birds. That's because that's not at all suspicious. There's a stagehand under the, just beneath the camera, kind of flapping a dead bird in this guy's face. But is there any goblin music in Troll 2? No, as far as I remember. It's saying something, isn't it? Really, though. I would put Matei above Birdemic. I mean, they got similar kind of qualities and tones, but visual effects and all that kind of stuff, or at least I mean, it's really what Matei really kind of does. As as weirdly sort of like everything's like creep show though when it comes to the quality of these things. What's the betting they couldn't say that any no animals were harmed in the making of this film? Stupidity on the level of Demons 2. Demons 2, yeah, but even Demons 1 has its moments. It's that very kind of heightened comic book kind of feel to it. And I think that's what appeals to a lot of people with these movies. Not so much to me. I can enjoy watching them on plenty of occasions, but for the most part, they're not my go-tos. Troll 2 I find almost unwatchable, to be honest with you. Oh, nice. That's a nasty zit. There's something which is very kind of, I don't know, just entirely over the top. The Vaseline lens, the really kind of heavily saturated colours, and then you got all the primary colours and stuff like that in certain scenes. It does look like creep show gone crazy. I can only watch so much of that. Hitchcock would be proud. Ah, dear. Sounds a little bit wooey there, Grandmaster Gav. Remember, the second infection started because of the burned remains of the body. Doesn't fire do away with any disease and infections? Don't expect any scientific detail in this environmental crusading classic, do we? Really? Matteo Fragrasso never really gave a shit about those kind of details, really. I mean, it is one of the reasons why I say Fragrasso is one of the worst screenwriters that I know of. That and the fact that he kind of makes this dialogue, which is, even George Lucas would be like, kind of like, tone it down a little bit. That's quite right, Grandmaster. Kira says, I can at least laugh regularly at Troll 2, but some of Grasso's other stuff is unwatchable. Night Killer has so many awkward moments, it's unbearable. A lot of people love that stuff. Like I say, I find it just a little bit too... it pushes me a little bit too far over the top on that one. For the most part. I mean, it's like with Rat's Night of Terror. There's something about it. I think it's the dialogue. I think it's the oddness of the ADR. Everything just feels slightly out of shift with itself. It's like this. It's like suddenly we've got into this scene where it's like kind of over the top cobwebs and primary green gels and lights, which is kind of like this has been lit from weird angles and that kind of stuff. It suddenly feels like it's something like Tales from the Crypt, for God's sake, or something like that. She's pretty nimble, I'll give her that much. See, the funny thing is, I think the films would be a lot more watchable if certain aspects of it were kind of, just toned back, just pulled back a little bit. Like I say, some people love it for that. And it's fair enough. I'm not going to, sure as hell not going to kind of deny that kind of stuff. Trying to remember, was Stage Fright dubbed? Seem to recall the voiceover was okay. Not sure on that one. Thing is, I mean, as long as everything else is kind of cohesive, it doesn't really matter too much if it's absolutely spot on. You know, once you kind of get used to it, it's not too big a problem. Although audio is incredibly important in the whole sort of thing, and if you know any aspect of that is out, then it can be very distracting. But if the lip sync is just a little bit bad, it's not that big a problem. You know, watch a lot of kind of Hong Kong cinema and stuff like that, then you soon get used to that kind of weirdness. But if the words that are coming out their mouths are utterly insane and inane, which a lot of Fragranto's dialogue is, then yeah, you're gonna. It makes it harder. But it's stuff like this. I mean, one of the things with the ADR in this is that it rarely ever feels like the voices are in the environment that they're actually kind of in the film. It always feels like it reminds you that the people who are doing the voices are in a studio box somewhere. Zombies are so inconsistent in this. Some walk, some crawl, others run, some use objects as weapons. Like I say, you know, Fragrasso and Matei were never really ones for those details. Consistency wasn't really a big problem for them. I'll be right back. The sync doesn't bother me. Watched a ton of Hong Kong films, and films were shot silent for years. Yeah, just about every Italian film, I think even almost even to this day, were shot without audio on set. On Good, Bad, and the Ugly, or was it Once Upon a Time in the West? I think it was on The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, actually, because it was. They were talking about it on extras this, and Clint Eastwood was talking about this whole thing that, you know, they'd be doing their stuff, and it did because it didn't matter about any noise and stuff in the background. You'd have people playing football and stuff like that off behind the camera. He was saying that's quite difficult to cope with when you're kind of used to the more recorded sound on set type setup that you'd get in America. The Four Eyes Scientist gives an epic performance. I think you do get some reasonable performances within, and you know, even when they're kind of like somewhat silly, but then you get it mixed in with a very kind of, shall we say, a high friction counterpart to that, which makes it very difficult to watch. You know, you watch like Anthropophagus the Beast, for instance, and the wild variation of performances in that. When you told us to work on Death One, you should have warned us about the risks involved. Yes. Oh, it's called Death One, I mean. I think it's monkeypox. Is this the hotel that they were just at earlier? I've lost track. Seems to have deteriorated somewhat. See, that's another thing you know Mateo does do, which is why I'm questioning what's going on. Is he likes to throw a lot of vegetation in there and call it post-apocalyptic. Hazy Jane. It's a bit of a brewdog night tonight. think it's a different hotel. I think it's the one from earlier where the guy kind of chopped his hand off in the bathroom. What's with the fabric coming down from the ceiling? You see what I mean? Just the set design on that is it's kind of curious. Everything does feel very much more like a stage show almost, in terms of the kind of realities that these sort of sets create. So none of it ever feels like it's in a, well, particularly in this kind of scene within these films, it never feels very grounded. It's always kind of, it's almost shifted into a comic book kind of world. This is why I love this more than Fulci or Romero's, because there's very little downtime. It kicks right into it, and just action sequence after horror sequence. It's a living comic book. Yeah. It's kind of how I would sort of assess why people enjoy it as much as they do. Although I have to say, this is proven to be more fun than Bratz Nights of Terror. And he does make an effort with the gore and stuff like that. I will give him that much. See, so much of this does not feel like Fulci. I mean, how long would you expect it to take a hotel to deteriorate to that sort of level? 10, 15, 20 years? Not 10 days. Well, it's not so much free, more really cheap. I think with Regrasso's writing, a lot of it is like a stream of consciousness, and it doesn't really get too much of a script revision. It's like, I've written it, job done, it's out there. Philippines is such a wonderful shooting location. It's no wonder everyone shot there in the 70s and 80s. Yeah, you've got, good locations, but like most of them shot there because it was cheap. I guess the weather at certain times of year is a lot more reliable. Mike Monty's not ever talking into the phone. Not never. Ebola would upset a lot of people these days. Well, the real thing certainly would. See, that's the problem. No engine. Oh, God. I thought it was going to piss into the radiator then. See, this feels more Fulci, this shot, for instance. He must have had some serious bloody smoke machines. Yoo-hoo! Victim! He's acting. It's only a smoke machine under the hood. Don't worry about it. You're actually burning yourself. Oh, you're talking about Ebola syndrome, are you, Kieran? Yeah. Alright, cut the smoke machines, yeah. Almost guarantee you, this is me being a nerd, that they will be oil cracker smoke machines. It actually gets this foggy in the Philippines due to the humidity. You get you put your hand on a wall and the wallpaper comes off. Well, I lived in Hong Kong for a couple of years as a kid, so I do appreciate the humidity is pretty high. Oopsie doopsie. I think she's found some water though. Hello, brother. Wet shirt, wet shirt, wet shirt. Shameless. Jesus, that didn't take long. I'm surprised he didn't have the dialogue of him going, "Oh, baby, oh, baby, just a little gentle." Stunts, ladies and gentlemen, he does his own. Time of the month. No, just stand there looking at them. No, I think I might back up a little bit. Ooh, put them up. I wonder how long these zombie guys have been kind of hiding in all the in the undergrowth. Yeah, I think sometimes there is something to be said about directing the zombies and how they move. I know George Romero didn't like doing it, but I am a zombie. I eat your face. They're actually the zombie lifeguards in the water at the moment. We'll save you. I'll save your brains. Yes, you can, Indie Phantom. We are currently at 45 minutes and just coming up to 40 seconds. Well, Walking Dead just went off for way too long, and they didn't really kind of have any plans for. It should have been much a shorter series, but they just kept trying to milk it. World War Z wasn't very suitable original material. Plus, it ended up just being a mess. They tried to cover too much ground in one film. Yeah. You can have the character development and all that kind of stuff in Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead and several other zombie films. I kind of did that. So you can do it. The thing is, the zombies. I think with Walking Dead, a lot of it was they didn't really kind of have anywhere to go with, kind of like, they had no destination in mind. So although they tried to do the character development, it only kind of went so far, and they could only really do the good guy, bad guy kind of thing for so long. Yeah, there were some interesting character arcs along the way, but just drawn out way too long. Zombie chloroplast, yes. Yeah, like I say, it's Bruno Mattei's DOP basically just uses a lot of primary colours all the time. These bloody violent tourists. I guess the Thriller cast had to do something for work, yes. Somehow I'm thinking that the hospital is probably the last place you want to be. So there are mass sightings of zombies. Make your way to a hospital. Up next is short. There's nothing that a little bit of Tiger Balm wouldn't sort out. Should be able to get it in that region. Your blood pressure is 0. No, you're right. It doesn't make sense. And she's still blinking. Well, I would imagine so. It's the first time she's seen anything like this. I would imagine that would be the case, considering, if it wasn't, they would have kind of figured out that they're probably not dead. Not in the traditional sense, anyway. I believe this is a tribute to the Blood Island films in the 60s, 70s, which had monsters with green blood, plays into the comic book style. Oh, very much so. Somehow I've never have seen this or anything past Zombie 2. Oh god, what's the other one? Is it Zombie 4 the Birds or something like that? But yeah, there's like 6, I think, in total. And to think I was considering watching. Sure, which one was it? The Evil Eye. So much more class with this one. Zombie 5 is killing birds. Okay. Okay. This is definitely a Fragrasso Bruno Mattei scene. We have flying heads, ladies and gentlemen. All I can say, this must be a very, very, very potent virus. Gotta love it when they take the trope and just amp up the cheese as well with it. Well, it kind of harks back, doesn't it, Kieran, to what I was saying earlier. When you got these directors that some consider to be kind of particularly amazing, and there's some really, really good Fulci films. But I've never been convinced that he was necessarily all that when it came to directing, because there's so many films of his that are really bad. I could say the same about Jess Franco to some extent, but I think there's a lot more in Jess Franco's work on a much larger scale, which stands up way better. I mean, Zombie 2, for instance, Zombie Flesh Eaters is it's a very well executed kind of version of this, if you like. But when you break it down, it is very, very straightforward. But you get other films like Don't Torture a Duckling and stuff like that, and the Gates of Hell trilogy and stuff, those kind of films, which were incredibly well done. Real visionary sort of stuff. But then, if you're right, and Fulci directed the head, there's definitely little brushstrokes of Return of the Living Dead in this as well. It's more than a few moments I was like kind of thinking about that sort of stuff. See, this looks like a Fulci directed scene. Oh, you're going to jump into some more water, because that didn't work out very well for the last lass that did that. Yeah, no, I believe you, Kieran. I believe you. God, it just shows how inconsistent this, the whole project was. You do get the feeling that it was, a Fulci just not giving a shit. And from what I've read about his thing, it's sort of one film that he kind of disowns. I wouldn't be surprised if he did it just as shit as he could, just be an asshole. Wouldn't it be great if Michael Jackson popped up? Yeah. Might need a little dab of blusher there, love. Yeah, Fulci directed this movie initially. And the rough estimate is he did about 70% of it, and Bruno Mattei did about 30. I think it's a lot more 50-50. But if what Kieran's saying, it does feel an awful lot like Mattei really kind of. Well, Fulci was channeling Mattei when he did this. He was probably the perfect person to have on top of this. Oh, flying zombie attack. Oh, that was careless. God, what a pair, yes. She's shambling. Shoot the shit out of her. Fulci was also really ill when making this. Apparently had a bloated stomach due to his illness and was miserable on set or something. I think he quite often was miserable on set, wasn't he? That was certainly one of the rumours, that he didn't complete it because of the illness, although he seems to indicate that he hated the project as well, so he might use it as an excuse. Oh, really? That's interesting. They killed her. Now they're going to kill me. Oh my god. I mean, what were the Gates of Hell trilogy and Zombie 2? It's no surprise, but he put an effort into those films. So did Fragrasso do the script for the OG Resident Evil? Quite possibly. See, I didn't mind it so much for that film because I mean the game has a very cheesy kind of vibe to it. Oh yeah, that'll hold them. Really, they just push their way through a proper door. Now these twigs that you've kind of strapped together, it's going to hold them back. I'm questioning this guy's engineering capabilities and qualifications. Yeah, I know that's the line, Kieran, but I was just adapting her line on that one. They've killed her, and now they're going to kill me. Oh my god. It's just Progresso warming up the reheating the script. Yeah, that held for 3 seconds. That should hold him for a while. Where did he get a fucking flamethrower from as well? It's that rigor mortis, that's why they do a lot of that. It's like with George Romero's films, the worst ones were the ones that always kind of like, stiff-armed. I always like the more kind of like, and then just sort of grasp it at the last second. For Grasso back at it again with the bloody fog machine. You know what? I'll give this film its credit. It's not as hard to sit through as some of the other stuff. It's pretty enjoyable and it's barreling along at a good pace. Look at somebody strapped to the ceiling. Oh, that's kind of cool. I'll just sit down and wait for you to eat me. Fucking hell! It's raining zombies. Hallelujah! It's like, yeah, oh yeah, I don't think we can stay here anymore. I'll give you that idea, you fucking genius. Oh, so the girl with the gammy legs got to jump down there now as well. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Indy. I figured, that's the thing. I'll even with films I don't like, I'll sit down and have a bit of fun with, especially in this context. It does give me a good excuse to sit through a film like this, because otherwise I'd have to really persuade myself. We've even got the wind machine and smoke machine on this shot. This is high budget living. Lots of Vaseline on the lens again. I am going to check who the DOP is on this one and see how many of the full-on Bruno Mattei Fragrasso films he worked on. Try having fun with a Dora film. That's a challenge. I do know someone who's working with that guy. Seems to have fun with it. I just clocked at one of these guys. He's called Roger. Yes. How many of these zombies hang out in the fucking roof? Seems to be their natural habitat. It's like, I don't know, some sort of bat virus that's going on here. Riccardo Grassetti. But it is one of the things, particularly with Bruno Mattei's films, his 80s films, that all has this like kind of heavily saturated, particular kind of lighting, Vaseline lens, lots of smoke machine. Spider Zombie does whatever Spider Zombie. Oh, okay, okay. So chuck him in the piss river. What the fuck? Zombie's looking a bit bored. Oh my god, that plank. I mean, they've done quite a good job painting it up and stuff, but they weren't very careful about making sure you couldn't see the fact that it's made out of foam rubber. I put it at Kioskis. Yeah, figured as much. There is something to be said for taking a breath, though, Everett. I think, I mean, a lot of it is because these projects weren't really kind of like, they're not really pet projects or anything like that. Because even Mattei didn't really kind of think that much to this film. He was sort of brought in just to finish everything off. For Grasso's always done this kind of stuff because I don't think he's a particularly talented writer, so he throws a lot of action scenes in. You know, what better way to avoid having dialogue and story than just to have shit being thrown at you? It's a very Hollywood kind of approach. The locations are pretty dang cool, yeah. Well, it seems like this office do kind of remind me of the sort of H.G. Lewis kind of vibe. Oh, but that's not the zombie lake they're on. Oh, it's got to be. I can't remember. Have we ever watched that together, Zombie Lake, Gary? Because that's quite a remarkable film. I'm sure I bought up a rip of it at one point or another. Notice how directors like to work with particular DOPs, Argento, and yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of trust involved in it. It's a terrible film, but kind of fun. Yeah, run to them for help, arms outstretched, going, "Oh!" They like to be nibbled on the ear. We're the government. We're here to help you. Yeah. Um, you get an awful lot of directors who are kind of like that. David Lynch is kind of one of those sorts of people. Christopher Nolan always tries to get the same DOP. Um, yeah. You look at someone like Lynch or even like Romero, and they always try to work with the same people. That's why there's so many of the same actors in there, a lot of the same crew. Chop it off. Well, happy birthday to Fabio. Oh, zombie chicken. Lots of loyalty and trust in maintaining a team. Especially in kind of companies like this, if you know what I mean, because they want to know what to expect from various people. There's not a lot of time to make these kind of films, and certainly not a lot of money. So having a reliable team behind you, people that you know how they're going to act, people that you know you're going to be able to work with, all that kind of stuff is very important. Which is particularly, kind of why George Romero would do that. He would, apart from having his friends around him, he knew certain people would and could do certain things. So you didn't have to worry about it. So I'm guessing The Crazies must have been a really, really important film in Italy. On this Timotei. Right back. Have they initiated Operation Murderous Cover-Up yet? Oh no, not the personality, less nerdy guy who... no. This is like The Crazies on crack. Oh really? Okay. Look, they had the fog machine. I mean, cost a lot of money. We're going to get their money's worth out of it. I haven't, no. Is it any good? Doctor overacting is off again. He's definitely trying to do the Dr. Logan, isn't he? They really ripped off a lot of movies in this, didn't they? Good evening, Adam. Still half pissed at a wedding. Catch you guys on the next one. Hope you're having a good time. I forgot to tell you I ordered M Butterfly last night. Blu-ray won't ship to Ireland, so got the DVD. Okay. I'll be surprised if it's not at least 3 or 4 more movies that they rip off. Give that man an Oscar. See, to the best of my knowledge, none of the Bruno Mattei films ever kind of like made the Razzies or anything. Kind of shows you, not even his worst foreign film. Ah. For the 70s and 80s Italian exploitation scene was just utterly shameless, wasn't it? God, I miss those days. Went to the cinema to see Elvis this week. It was actually a lot better than I thought it would be. Not much interested in the subject matter, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. Italians knew how to do horror films in the 1970s. Yeah, that's the thing. Italian cinema has always been kind of like a little all over the place, but particularly like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they really did double down on copying what Hollywood did, and they made a bloody good living out of it. Razzies are kind of crap. They nominated Carpenter's The Thing back in the day. Even bad movies with good acting would have worst acting nominations, yeah. Come on, hop along. I think the 80s was particularly the bad period for them kind of just ripping shit off, but varying varying degrees. But then, the cannibal genre is a very Italian genre. He had all the Mondo stuff in the 50s, 60s. In like the 40s and 50s, there was all the kind of like neo-realists and all that kind of stuff. So they did do a lot of their own kind of stuff, but the likes of these I think of the production companies, but a lot of the Italian kind of exploitation production companies, they were just there to make a quick buck for the most part. So it's very wildly ranging kind of qualities to them. And it's kind of telling when you got like Jess Franco and he did the stuff like Venus and Furs and stuff like that. It was through a British production company, Harry Allen Towers. Okay, so you got guns on them. Yeah, get into a fist fight with them, will you? What? Essentially, Italian exploitation cinema was equivalent to the Asylum and their brand off rip-offs. Kind of, yeah. But then you had to sort of like, particularly in the 60s, the like mid to late 50s and 60s, you had a lot of giallo. Kind of continued into the 70s as well. So they could do that, their original stuff. But yeah, this stuff, particularly. Oh. Ouchie. Zombie 3 is a natural extension of neorealism. Zombie 3 looks like Hell of the Living Dead. It's like it's like a halfway between Hell of the Living Dead and Troll 2. It's kind of weird like that. When you hit somebody with a pipe, don't go, ah! Come on, girl, do it. Camera shadow. Well, even Kubrick got the shadow of the camera in one shot in a film. It's not as egregious as the one in The Beast in Heat, though. I was going to ask you at which people preferred between this and Hell of the Living Dead. 50-50 on that one. Some of these zombies talk here. When convenient. I have seen Cat in the Brain. I can't remember a goddamn frame of it. I remember if I got the VHS. No, it's Black Cat. You know what, Richard? I mean, I find I prefer the pacing a little bit of Hell because it does sort of give it a little bit of a time for things to kind of bubble along at a more reasonable pace. This is, like it's kind of been talked about earlier. It is like kind of one thing after another, after another, after another, after another. So it just feels a little bit sort of tacked together in a way that even Hell of the Living Dead is a little bit better at. Hello, Spike. Tennis is finally finished. Well, I hope you enjoyed the tennis. Good to see you. Are they zombies or infected people? Lindsay was always adamant Nightmare City didn't have any zombies in it, only infected people. It's always the big argument, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, for me, if it walks like a zombie and sounds like a zombie, it's probably a zombie. It's like people always kind of like complain about that. You know, when you call the ghouls or whatever you want to call them in 28 Days Later, you know, you're supposed to call them the infected, or they're not zombies. Yeah, yeah, they kind of are. Oh, oh no! How will they walk around that 3 meter strip of burning petrol? See, the reason she's had the leg injury all this time is just so she can see the grenade under the truck. Um, they're thinking this thing through. Ah, not convinced that explosion would have killed zombies. Dawn of the Dead original, still the best zombie film I have ever seen. Yeah, probably. I mean, I put it on an equal footing with Day of the Dead. But Dawn of the Dead is a great, great, great film. I love it to death. Like this enough that I'll rewind the stream later and catch what I missed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, feel free. I know. They're like 20 metres away from the bloody building, and that's what killed the zombies. What the fuck? These these are cunning zombies. They wear ghillie suits. And all of that could have been avoided if the helicopter hadn't, you know, gone 4 meters off the goddamn ground, so you had to bloody climb up to it. Shaun of the Dead is definitely up there as well. I enjoy Shaun of the Dead. It is, you know, by its very nature, and this is not really a criticism, or it's an observation that, you know, it is by design very derivative. It's homage to all of those films, but still a great film. I know. It's turned into Shogun Assassin. I want the Dawn of the Dead kind of finale music, kind of going on. I haven't watched it in a very long time there in the oh god, now they're ripping off Platoon. it's fair enough. I'm a little less discriminating when it comes to the description of zombies. I mean, and it is also Zombie 3, so. And I want to eat your brains. I think you sat too close to the radio antenna. Punk music? Some like 1980s power metal going on there. Well, I quite enjoyed that. It's awful, but it's kind of fun at the same time. Oh dear, I think that's probably the right level for Bruno Mattei and for Grasso, and like I kind of, yeah, it doesn't feel like a lot of Fulci in there, does it? Either that, it was have a very very off day, but I think a combination, of his of Fulci's ill health plus hating what he was making was probably in part responsible for this film. What a shit ending! What the ending is obviously another Day of the Dead rip off. Fuck off in the helicopter. But late night viewing at its best. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Not quite sure what we'll watch on the next one, but this channel that I've found, obviously the one that this has been hosted on, has an awful lot of stuff on there. So as long as it's around, I'm sure we can mine it for a little bit of content. But I'm not watching the film, but the Cinema Snob review nutshelled it perfectly. Utterly bonkers, yes, pretty much. I love that phrase, utterly bonkers. It's just kind of encapsulates what Bruno Mattei's films often descend, but certainly from this period, often ended up being. He's very chill considering his transition. Well, he's got a job to do. That was a film. Some good stuff on his channel. Yeah, there really is. Like I say, don't know how long it will stay up for, but hopefully it will stick around for a while. The Untold Story could be the next one. You'll have to activate English subs. That's a turn off for some. That's not a problem for me. House of Clocks was by Fulci was a TV movie that got under the radar. I'm assuming that must have been quite early in his career. Would that be about right? So a lot of these directors did TV stuff previous to their kind of careers in the exploitation cinema. And that's one of the things that not everybody kind of realises is the likes of Fulci and D'Amato and all sorts of those directors worked with some very kind of famous directors. As their kind of understudies, if you like. I must get my mention of Al Cliver there now. I can move on. Oh, bless you, Spike. Maybe Tombs of the Blind Dead. I did look at that earlier, and I was kind of thinking that might be quite a good one to do at some point. But yeah, just a great selection of stuff on there. I mean, I'm sort of looking at the list now, and we've seen Zombie, the Zombie Flesh Eaters. There's Black Sabbath on there. There's Contamination on there. Seen that a couple of times already so far, but yeah, Demon Seed might be quite a fun one. You watch, it'll be gone by next week, this channel. I honestly don't know how they manage to get away with it sometimes, but there you go. X-Ray sounds interesting. Stepford Wives. There's a bit of diversity in this channel. It has to be said in the times of stuff they do too. Tombs of the Blind Dead. The Black Cat. We did watch that a little while ago, didn't we? The House That Drips Blood. 10 Deaths in the Cat's Eyes. Yeah, some cool stuff on there. According to my Letterboxd, Tomato is currently my most watched director somehow. That I don't know if it's something to do with my watch alongs, possibly. Dear. Yeah, just follow the link and it will take you to the channel. But I'll just go to their page and have a look on the playlists and stuff like that. Some pretty cool stuff. Vintage 70s and Shallow also has a muck, but it's unlisted, so you need to dig out the link. Yeah. 1989 was House of Clocks, yeah. Yeah, so a bunch of good stuff on there, which I think is going to be kind of fun to explore as we head through the summer. But yeah. I have to say, it's getting warmer and warmer in this place at the moment. It's like it's start off with the temperature at about like kind of 23 in here, and it's like 26 or 27 by the end of the stream. But that might be my big ass bloody toaster of a computer that's sat up there. But that's some good stuff to have a look through anyway, and check it out on. Put suggestions on the Ramble-Holics, and we'll see what we do. I should be doing one next week. It's a bit of a weird week this week because I don't start till Tuesday, and I think I've got something happening on the Saturday at work and stuff like that when I head back to work. Indie Fantasy says, love that summer has arrived. I'm more of a winter guy, I have to say, a bit of a sucker for that. Save for the humidity. The one nice thing about the summer is, when it starts to get towards autumn and the nights get a little bit earlier, is getting the telescope out or doing some night sky photography. So, because I've been playing around with this for the last few weeks, and it is a lovely, lovely, lovely camera. But obviously it gets dark. By the time it gets dark, and the thing is, when it talk about doing night sky photography, right, it's you can't really do it until a few hours after dark, like two and a half hours after dark, after sun's gone down, because there's still a lot of light in the sky, so it takes a while. So literally in the summer you've got like about 4 or 5 hours, well maybe 4 hours, where you can actually do any of that kind of stuff. But yeah. He is gonna sit there with a fan and start blowing the humidity towards the UK. I'm kind of glad I watched it. You know what? I mean, the ending I remembered. So I have seen this at some point, but it was such a long time ago that I didn't actually kind of remember most of it. But yeah, definitely one of the more fun of the Bruno Mattei films. I think definitely sort of class it up there. I did order. I've now got on pre-order Pink Flamingos, the Criterion Collection. Well, I had some bad news today because the other day, because Amazon cancelled my order of Mardi Gras Massacre because apparently it's not available. And I went onto the 88 Films website and it said it's delayed. So not quite sure what's going on there, but I'll have to reorder that at some point. which is annoying. But there you go. Because I would like to get a decent copy of that. I've got this kind of semi-ripped off version up there somewhere. See if I can see it. Where are you? Mardi Gras Massacre. Probably not going to find it. It's up there somewhere. Yeah, it's a cheap ass version and not a very good version. So it was going to be interesting to see a new kind of cleaned up version of that. So I'm not quite sure what's delayed it, but yeah. I have a hobby driving motorbikes. The motorbike scene in Demons was rather cool. Yeah. It's a batshit crazy sequence on that, isn't it? Because it's that end scene. They're doing all the running around the auditorium on the motorbike, and then you get the Deus Ex Machina, and a fucking helicopter dropping in from the ceiling, which gives them a way to get out just before they die. I never understood that. It's not foreshadowed in the film as far as I'm aware. Oh, it's a fun film, I'll give it that much. It's a very fun film. Mardi Gras Massacre has been delayed until September. Mine was also cancelled till September. Okay. I'd rather they kind of like just said, look, it's delayed. Do you want to cancel rather than actually cancelling it? But there you go. But I've got Pink Flamingos on the way. That version of that. I am contemplating getting the UK Eraserhead Criterion edition, because apparently there is one now. I've got the US one, which is a lot harder to play because regionalisation. So I might well do that, which will kind of up my Eraserhead collection to 4 different versions of it. Because I got the busted ass US original release for Criterion, and it has one fucked up scene in it, which I don't think makes it a collector's item, but yeah. Demons 2 kind of sucked. The first one was fun. I seem to remember the second one. I have seen it a couple of times in the past, but I don't remember an awful lot of it, and that says something. I do have it on Blu-ray up here somewhere. Where are you? Where are you? Oh, there you go. Oh, crikey, he's trying to knock everything off the fucking... There we go. Demons 2. I've got to watch it again sometime, I think, because I don't remember too much of it. Very distant memory of watching Mardi Gras Massacre back in the day VHS. I seem to remember a foot being sliced, but it's the only thing that's stuck with me. Hey, it was 40 years ago. Yes. One of the things with it is, I mean, it is basically Blood Feast. It's a kind of unofficial remake of Blood Feast, and they did it with even less money, as far as I'm concerned, than H.G. Lewis did. It's not as well executed, but I love the performance of William Metso, the killer, in it. It's just, I don't know what it is about that performance, but it's awkward, it's stilted, but it's funny as fuck. So, yeah. I mean, if you're after kind of all the much more showy stuff, even, despite the kind of Ed Wood style sets and acting, then Blood Feast is probably the better option. Because for all the shittiness of some of H.G. Lewis's work, in terms of the acting, the sets and the scripts and stuff like that, they went full out on all the blood and gore. I remember Mardi Gras Massacre was really boring. The gore scenes are all the same, more or less. Yeah, like I say, it's more to do with certain aspects of the film that I love it. It's a little bit of a guilty pleasure. But if someone turns around and said the film's utter crap, I'm kind of like, yeah, it kind of is. I ain't going to argue with you. I just love the kind of Because the killer guy, right, William Metz, I can't remember the name of the character in the film, but he's like kind of like going around bars and sort of because he goes around killing prostitutes basically to cut them up to making ingredients in the blood feast. But it's going around bars and he goes, it's like kind of like going up to various prostitutes. Are you evil? Who is the most evil girl in the bar? Kind of stuff. And one of the prostitutes like kind of like, oh, I'm really evil. I am so evil. I'm totally evil. It just tickles me. I mean, it is an objectively badly made film, but yeah, there's aspects of it I just find fucking hilarious for no good reason. To this day, I've never sat through the entirety of Razorhead. Really, not my cup of tea. I can understand why. You need to, and I'm going to take these headphones off. To enjoy it, you've got to sort of have that kind of in to it, if you know what I mean. Some people just enjoy it for the visual style and all that kind of stuff. But there is a very coherent story there. It's just a case of finding it, because it's kind of enveloped in this very, very strange world. I think I did a commentary track on it at some point. But I did a 2-part review. I think it was a 2-part review. I did a review of Eraserhead years ago. Well, critique of, I should say, analysis, which I offer. Go watch that if you are interested in kind of like a breakdown of what the film is about. Then, if you do decide to watch it, then you might actually kind of enjoy it. But it is a film that takes a lot of work. It's not, although Lynch would kind of like say, well, it's all there. Yes, it is, but it's not a style of storytelling that everybody is equipped to kind of grab immediately. But I took a lot of time kind of looking at the film, figuring it out. So there was an Eraserhead watch along too, yeah. Actually, the commentary track I'm most proud of is probably the Inland Empire one. Yeah, that was just an absolute dick of a film to get my head around. It makes Eraserhead seem very, very straightforward and kind of like easy. That's it, Inland Empire. If you want to kind of like try to make it a cohesive whole, it's quite a difficult film to get your head around. But I think I did quite a good job on that one. That's the one that took the most amount of work. Although, with the possible exception of Salo, might have been about equal with those two films. The one mistake of interpreting every tiny minuscule detail in Lynch's work is films meant to be more experiences. Don't think I entirely agree. I don't think it's just about an experience. He's usually very coherent in what he's trying to say. Looking at every teeny tiny detail, yes, that can be a bit onerous, but because I don't subscribe to that kind of thing, that everything in the film means something. But finding out who the story is, so you can figure out the angle from which is being told, which will also kind of inform you upon the character, because there's visual stuff which is related to that in terms of the POV character, because you're seeing the world almost like they're through their eyes, or how they would recount that story. So understanding sort of like the psychology of something like Eraserhead is very dependent on kind of figuring out things that sort of run throughout the entire stuff. And I've always kind of like, a lot of people go, it's a fear of fatherhood kind of movie. And I've always been kind of like, that's not quite it. It's more a craving for and a fear of sex, essentially. He wants the relationship and all that kind of stuff. With that's what he's kind of after. But the consequences of having sex was reproduction, and that's kind of part of his nightmare. The child is a part of that. If you like your chicken bloody, Eraserhead is a movie for years. But don't. It's like, yeah, I agree in some respects with you, yeah, Kieran, in terms of people make the mistake of interpreting every tiny minuscule detail in Lynch's work. Although I would say Kubrick fans are worse for that, because when they're basically trying to analyse the meaning of the shadow of the helicopter in the opening of The Shining, you kind of go, you've lost your fucking mind. Contrary to popular belief, Kubrick was very capable of making errors. And occasionally sort of going, well, yeah, we can't reshoot that, so he'll have to be in there. I kind of agree. It's really good stuff, Twin Peaks Return. There was a video, and I can't remember where it is, but somebody did a kind of like a complete analysis of Twin Peaks. And it was fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating. Have you seen Gestapo's Last Orgy? Yes, I've seen Gestapo's Last Orgy. That's a depressing fucking film. There's elements of it that are, typically ridiculous in the whole kind of Nazi exploitation sort of sense. Things like the gerbils instead of rats and shit like that, which goes on in the film. And certain parts of it which are, clearly kind of lowbrow exploitation, to say the least. But there is an interestingly potent story of revenge which is also within the movie, which kind of elevates it. I do remember one scene in that is particularly affecting is when the girl's friend begs her for help, and she sort of has to kind of like look after herself, so she gives her the cold shoulder, and she gets waked off to get killed, which is a particularly upsetting scene, and one of those scenes that you kind of look at, you go, there is something going on here that is not just pure exploitation. Because if you look at something like SS Experiment Camp or Gestapo's Last Orgy, The Beast in Heat, and a lot of the exploitation, Nazi exploitation stuff, a lot of it's very, very, very frivolous, and deliberately so. To the point you sort of look at it, you go, how has anybody really, if they've seen this, really take exception to it? Because it's just barking. It's pathetic, to be quite honest, a lot of it. Gestapo's Last Orgy, I can understand why it upset people. Is that the 4-hour Twin Peaks explained? I think that might be the one. Yeah, I did watch it all. It's actually really quite fascinating. Whether I agree with all of it, that's a different matter. But they come up with a very cohesive kind of theory for it, and that's the one thing I've always said about film theory. If you've got a theory, don't base it on just one thing within the film. It's got to apply throughout if the film is of any quality and consistency. So things like, my theory for Eraserhead, what it's about and all that kind of stuff is solid because it applies right the way through. People are free to disagree, but I always kind of like look at those things and go, well, yeah, that's fine. But if you've got your own explanation, then don't just base it on one little shot or one little scene. Just kind of work out how it applies to the entirety. Ironically, Matei made one of the better Nazi exploitation flicks, SS Extermination Love Camp, and it wasn't much good either. And that's the thing. I mean, what was it like, Salon Kitty and stuff like that, which are generally considered the better in the Nazi exploitation films, and yeah, you can even put that into Nazi exploitation to a degree. Love Camp 7, I think, was the first, like, kind of what everybody kind of describes as the first Nazi exploitation. Now, that's a pretty trashy film as well, and kind of amusing in terms of it's so overacted. Canadian as well. You thought they were such lovely people. Not seen all the explained yet. No, it's a bit of a commitment, but it's worth kind of watch an hour. Come back the next day, watch another hour. I did quite enjoy it. If you want a good human analysis of Twin Peaks, watch Cornpone Flicks. He's really good. Corn. Can you send us a link to that, Kerry, at some point? I'd appreciate that. Anyway, I think we'll call it a day there. But that's a lot of fun tonight. I've enjoyed this one tonight. Ramble-Holics for suggestions and stuff. Like I say, this channel seems to be a bit of a goldmine, and we'll have a look at something else. I believe probably next Saturday would be likely the best day for it. But I will try to let you know a little bit earlier in the week. But until then, I think... Oh, hang on. Hurrah, still going. Oh, hello. I was literally about to... Guess I've heard Last Orgy, not a film to tell my mum I quite enjoyed. I thought it was a better film than a lot of people give it credit for. It's not perfect. It's not even what I would call a great film, but it is... It does make an effort to be a little bit better. But yes, we will call it an evening there, because my voice will give out sometime soon, and it's getting quite warm in here. I'd like to get the door open and get some fresh air in. I will see you next week. You folks take care, and yeah, see you then. Thanks for joining. Bye.